She said, I can't wait until we get to a time when everything, and she emphasized, and I mean everything, is built with mothers and children in mind first.
Hello, Arzu.
Hey.
I'm glad to be here with you to record another episode of Design to Connect. We are here for our series on care
Mhm.
and really excited to get into this episode.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's
You can
jump in
you can
into
jump
it.
in,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, what we are trying to delve into this series is how care can influence how people lives in cities. So, what we see as designers and policymakers is that cities are just made for who we think is fully healthy, fully productive. The so-called productive people. But we forget about everyone else who is the majority of our population. And so what we are trying to understand is what happens and how cities are shaped differently when you think about everyone else.
That it should be the normal situation, but it's not, unfortunately. So, and who we want to talk to today is, among many other things, a mother. And unfortunately, as we see in the society of today, mothers, they are not represented in a lot of spaces. And, even though they are such an important group, their needs are not taken into consideration. Also, when we design cities, when we design products. And it's as if kind of the mothers in today's world, they are like an invisible part of the society. But, as far as also productivity goes, with our, obsessed society with
Hmm.
productivity, actually mothers are one of the most productive, parts of the society, as they also give birth to everyone. So we are very excited to today have our guest with us. I'm really excited to have her because the first time that I heard her talk about motherhood and how mothers' needs are not taken into consideration in many things, and she also talks about designs and cities. And it made me also think that I never thought about mothers, even though we talk about inclusive designs a lot of times, and we are also thinking about being mothers. Still, it hasn't been in our minds. So I'm really excited because I've been thinking about what you said, Natasha, since last year. So I'm really, really happy to have you with us. And I already said your name. So here we have today with us Natasha Heath. Thank you so much for being here, really.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the invite. And I love that you're joining these two topics of design, architecture, city planning, and motherhood. How do those two relate? I love that.
Yeah. We hope we can do it yeah
The right way.
the right way.
Yes.
We are trying. So
Yes.
thank you again and welcome officially to our
Thank
podcast.
you.
And I think let's start more personal, maybe,
Yeah.
but a
Mhm.
tricky question that I'm doing these days, I'm a bit obsessed, but let's see how it goes, is first, how are you?
That's a big
And
tricky
Oh,
question.
that's tricky. It's not so easy to say.
right. Especially if you're being honest, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm
And then,
fine.
yes, I mean, of course, you can share whatever you feel comfortable.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then, if you can tell us who you are, maybe first without talking about your career first, but we'll get into that.
Great. So how am I feeling? I'm feeling well. I'm feeling excited. I feel seen. So thank you. Um, what else? Um, who am I? Right? Who am I?
Yeah.
I uh, I am a dancer. I used to do it professionally, but taking profession out of it, it is the language of my soul, and I have to remind myself to claim that title just as a my being, right? A dancer, someone that expresses through movement. I am a mother. I am a wife, a daughter, a friend, a sister. What else? Trying to keep profession out of it. Born and raised in Los Angeles. Very rare. I'm like one of 5 people born and raised in Los Angeles. What else? Yeah. I yeah. And then if you want me to start talking about work, we can do that as well. But yes, that's
Oh, we are
who I
doing
am
it. Don't
in a
worry.
nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there. Thank you very much. It's beautiful. I think, sometimes we are trying to, I mean, it's the first thing that we think. It's like, what's my job? What am I really doing? It's always
Yes.
connected to am I paid for? But,
Yes. Yes.
sometimes we are so layered in many
Mhm.
things. You were saying you're a sister, you're a wife, you're a mother, and it's so
Yes.
beautiful sometimes to remind ourselves,
We are all those things.
we are
Yes.
all those things.
Yeah.
So we'll answer to the same question, I guess,
Yes.
to get
Oh,
also a
I'm
bit
also
perfect. Oh,
so
yeah.
sorry. Yeah. Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
no,
I'm
no,
also
no.
a Baha'i. That's the faith that I follow, the Baha'i
Mhm.
faith. I'd love just to add that into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, of
Thank you.
course.
And yeah,
Mhm.
I think when we talk about like these different aspects of ourselves, our timing also could make more sense because when we define ourselves only with our job, then it seems, it makes sense to spend most of our time in our job. But when we define ourselves in all these different things, it means that, your awake life should be also divided between all these different things. But I think, yeah, right now,
Right.
the majority of our life is the job. So
Yes. Yes. How to make it all cohesive, right? Our full identity
Yeah,
cohesive and not separated or
separate.
compartmentalized. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
definitely.
thank you. And I guess I will unveil a bit of ourselves
Yeah.
as well. Because I think the episode we are doing with you, it's on motherhood. We were also reflecting on what it means for us to become mother, because it's something we would like to do one
Mhm.
day or another.
Mhm.
And being of different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, being born and raised in different countries makes us also see the word mother in different ways. Sometimes you give for granted that there is only one way to be a mother and one way to act the ritual of being a mother, while you have so many different rituals and beliefs and connection to this word. So I guess for us, even seeing my mom kind of taking care of myself when I was 6, and she was like, "You're going to be fine. You just go and do your breakfast." And then I see still my husband mom, who is Iranian, who says, "Okay, I'll do breakfast for you." It's one of these tiny things. Is how do you be a parent without being so influenced by how your mom or your dad raised you? It's like the question. But I guess the question for you would be, how did you understand what it means to be a mother, and
Mm.
how to make that role work for you and for your
Mm.
family and for your kids?
Wow, that's a great question. So obviously I had a mother and thankfully, had her in my life growing up, and she's still with me. She's still alive. And but what I did see from my mother was she worked very hard. She worked full time um, for as long as I can remember. I don't think in the beginning, but I know early on she started working full time as well as my father. And so she would leave before I woke up to go to school. So I either got myself ready, or when my sister was still around at home before she went to college, she would help me. She would drive me to school. And then if not, then I was getting myself ready. And then my dad would take me to school. And then even I would come home and she would come home a few hours later because her work was far
Yeah.
and it was long hours. So I just remember her working a lot. So for me, there was just witnessing that sacrifice of, being one of the providers as well in the family. Um, And also what really astounds me, once I became a mom, it didn't hit me. It didn't realize that I didn't see hardly any pregnant women or babies growing up.
Mm.
It was my sister did have two daughters, but she lived in a different
Yeah.
state, so I saw her like twice a year. So I would see her in her pregnancies and with her children, my nieces. But in terms of just like daily normal life and rhythm, day to day, I didn't see pregnant women and I didn't see little
Oh.
children.
Mm.
And so suddenly I I get married, I decide to have children, I'm thrust into motherhood and I realize I don't I don't know
No,
anything
anything.
about anything. I don't know about I thought it would be just organic and natural
Mhm.
uh, and my mom was still working full time when I had my children. She's
Mhm.
now retired, but then she was still working. So she wasn't really available to come maybe help day to day. She helped the way that she could with gifts and meals and visits. But in terms of like just the day to day, because especially in the early years, it's such a daily task.
Mm.
It's just like every hour, every minute, there's something to do, something to learn about raising
Mhm.
an infant, keeping an infant baby alive.
Alive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like feeding them every 2 hours, changing the diapers constantly, trying to get them to sleep or not sleep.
Yep.
It's a constant task and effort. And I remember just really feeling it felt like a culture shock. I was shocked
Mm.
and astounded. And I reflected on my life and I said, I spent my entire life up until about 30. 30 is when I had my kids. Um, being independent, learning about being an independent woman, being an artist as a dancer, teaching Pilates, just like
Mhm.
living this, what felt like an independent womanly life.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I became a mom, and none of that mattered.
Yeah.
Nothing about what I learned about life in school, getting a degree, traveling, being on stage, working with famous artists, like none of that
Yeah.
mattered. And suddenly I was doing the most important job, the most, the thing I cared about the most ever. And I had no idea what I was doing. No
Mm.
one, I felt like no one talked about anything. No one taught me about anything. I didn't see anyone around me doing it. And I was
Mhm.
shocked and really upset that like no one around me, that my school, I almost wish
Oh.
that they still had these home ec classes that they used to
Mm.
Yeah.
do back in the day for both men and women. I wish they did them for
Mhm.
both. I wish they taught
Mm.
everyone. Let's learn about cooking. I feel like I didn't even really know how to cook, like
Mm.
cooking, raising children, keeping a household, managing a household, like these basic daily things that suddenly is my full-time job.
Job. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, and I'm learning on the job and I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed and I'm tired and I'm lonely
Yeah.
and I'm angry and I'm resentful
Yeah.
Mm.
and it was really a shock to me and I felt really let down by just society as a whole, not
Mm.
just like with my interpersonal relationships, but just the
Yeah.
structure of society, like what you're teaching me, what you're teaching
Mm.
me in
Mhm.
school. How are, there was no preparation for the most important job in my life.
Mm.
Absolutely. And it's crazy that, there is not a real movie on these things,
Yeah.
It's like whenever you get pregnant, it's like, okay, this is a 40 weeks things and so many things will do in like your body will change. Your body will do things that you don't know it's able to do. And it's just the beginning of what is going to happen after.
Yeah.
And nobody tells you about that. And when you go to the hospital, it's just like, this scientific thing where they just scan your body and your belly and off you go.
Mhm.
You're
They
like,
Yeah.
calculate.
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
okay, nobody ever told me it can go wrong. I can still feel sick so many times. I can feel so tired so many times, but still that's also a huge job.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
nobody's paying that job. At least here you go off leave just the 3 months before after, no, before the delivery, which is like, I'm done. I'm almost done. Why we do it
You get
just
3 months
now? Yeah, we have
before.
5 months.
I think USA is
Those,
worse.
It's worse.
oh,
It's
is it? Oh,
horrible. What do you
so
get?
I'm
3 months
okay then.
during pregnancy?
We
That
get
sounds glorious.
three, yeah.
Yeah.
And there
3
is
months. And then
better than
after, how
this.
much?
2, yeah.
2 months?
Or is the opposite, 2
I
before and
think you
3
can
after.
decide when to start it, as I know.
Yeah, but it's still 5 months in
Yeah.
total.
Yeah, in total it's 5 months.
That's
And now,
glorious.
I know. And in
Here,
France is even better. Like they have a
Mhm.
midwife for free because it's public service. And they have so many things like for free.
yeah, that's
Oh,
what we need. That's what we need. Here in America, you're lucky if you get, some women only get 2 weeks, which is
oh,
horrible. 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Some, I think the baseline is 6 weeks after birth.
mhm.
If you're lucky, paid.
Yeah.
And then after that,
And
you don't
that's
get
it.
paid. 6 weeks. And then sometimes you have to decide, you have to like, again, decide like where you take it. So women are working. They might stop like 1 or 2
Mhm.
weeks before birth.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
they'll take like 2 or 3 weeks or 6 weeks. Luckily, I wasn't bound to a job like that where I was afraid of losing it, or my
Mhm.
husband was kind of the main provider, but we
Yeah.
struggled for a while in the beginning financially,
Yeah, of course.
it was a struggle because there's just not that support and that pressure of like still providing for a family
Mhm.
when they should be focusing recovering from birth, number one, for the woman.
Yeah.
And number two, both, it's so important for both partners to be able to really just take the time to get to know their baby, nurture their baby, raise their
Yeah.
child. The first year, the first 2 years are so important. And we're just not honoring that.
I mean, and the consequence is the society that we see.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Really unhappy, depressed, anxiety ridden people. Lots of mental health issues. And I think women trying to like climb out of birth, recovering from birth, taking much longer than it needs to, which I know I
Yeah.
experience, taking like 6 years to feel like I'm back to myself, 6 or 7 years
Mhm.
versus, maybe a year or two, like just really allowing the family to slow down and raise
Yeah.
their child in just a slower pace, and then to reintroduce them back into like the workforce.
Yeah. So as you started, can you tell us, so what is it that you do and what led you to the work that you're doing? Because I think
Yes,
we can
yeah. So I still teach Pilates, which is a form of exercise, and I've been doing that for like 15 or 16 years. So I still teach Pilates, and I also the last year or two, I really started to. I'm obsessed with the postpartum recovery period for women right after birth, the fourth trimester, the first 40 days, the cuarentena, like
Yeah.
this period of time that the woman's body physically, mentally, spiritually, energetically needs to recover after birth.
Mhm.
Because it's, at least here in the United States, they make sure the baby's out, they make sure your numbers are fine, right? You're not dying,
Yeah.
you're fine,
Yeah.
you're patched up, go
Mhm.
home,
Mhm.
see you in 6 weeks. And then at six
Yeah.
weeks, they're like, yep, you're fine. You can go back to sex and go back to work. Good luck. It's,
You're like,
and we're like, no, I don't feel right. I don't feel good.
mm-mm.
I'm,
Mhm.
it's really a tragedy what's happening. So, but I also know that, so I was really, I'm really drawn to this postpartum time of postpartum care. And I knew that, like, I think this is the key. Like, if we start here, I feel like then the recovery, just the whole experience can change. And so I started researching, looking into what is it that women really need at this time.
Mhm.
And I found the Fourth Trimester book by Kimberly Ann Johnson, and she talks a lot about what they do around the world in different cultures. And here are a lot of the similarities. They all feed them certain foods, warm, nourishing foods. They all have some sort of like loving touch, like physical care, massage or practice, right? They all have women surrounding the women. There are wise women that have done it before that are there helping them. You know, just she goes through all these needs, and then I found someone that teaches postpartum care practices. She goes by Indigimama online, and her name is Panketsani, and her lineage is Mexican traditional medicine and Mesoamerican practice, and she teaches these practices postpartum care. And so I took her courses, and I've learned how to do the postpartum care ceremonies with the closing of the bones ritual with the Mexican shawls, and you know, learning about the special teas you make and the vaginal steaming and the herbal baths. And so I'm pulling in, I'm trying to like learn all this knowledge that I feel as women we used to just hand down naturally. It used to be more of an apprenticeship, more of a mentorship. Like you saw it. You know, we lived together more. We lived closer to our grandmas and our aunties, and so we all were a part of it. And we handed down the recipes. We handed down. We taught each other how to breastfeed. You know, it wasn't. We're so isolated now, right? The way that the cities and homes and family units are designed now, we're separated from that knowledge that comes in just being in community with each other. So long answer to say that now I'm really passionate about teaching, or so education, teaching families about postpartum care. I just want them to know this is what you need. This is the best way you can recover. How can you, you know, call on your community, make sure you're eating these foods. Here are some recipes, you know, just getting the basics down so that they hopefully can get a better postpartum recovery. So education and planning for families around postpartum care is part of my work. And also offering some of these modalities that I'm learning, the postpartum ceremony, the abdominal massage, the traditional abdominal massage that I've learned. So also sharing some of those services as well, just diving into that world of postpartum. And I'll just love to add, I don't know if I mentioned this yet. I know we talked about it before, that I'm half Colombian. My mom's from Colombia, and my grandmother is still alive and still lives there. And I just learned, after I started diving into this work, I learned about 5 months ago that she did all the postpartum care in the family.
No way.
She was the one that went to the homes, fed the mothers, wrapped their bellies, helped them, massaged them, like, you know, took care of them, did all of the things traditionally that women need. She did that for all the women in the family. And I was like, what? I never knew this.
And
And I see a lot,
cool.
you know, in this cultural ritual. I see also myself, because I was talking to my mom and telling her, you told me nothing about being pregnant, about all the things that you know happened there. And then she was like, I thought you knew, because when I was growing up, I was around, you know, my aunties, my cousins, so someone was always either pregnant or going through that experience. And I was like, no, mom. But again, is I think what we also wanted to ask you, how do you build this support around you, either if it's your family, your community, your neighbor, like how do you do that before you really need it?
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately, it's not set up for us, right? I think the goal is that it's set up for us so we don't have to think about it, that the midwife comes, or I know in certain like Chinese or Korean cultures, they have like full-time nannies that come live with you for 40 days, and they feed you and they cook for you and they take care of you and they teach you about your baby. I don't know if that's universal or if you pay for that, but you know, I'm not sure in those countries, but I think that's the goal, that it's automatic. Woman's pregnant, she's getting the education she needs. She's getting the doula. She's getting the midwife.
Yeah.
She's getting the postpartum doula. No question. Done.
Yeah.
But I think now, because it's not set up for us, we have to inform ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. So I highly recommend any woman that gets pregnant to read The Fourth Trimester by Kimberly Ann Johnson. I don't know many other sources that are out there like that. There's also The First 40 Days by, I can't remember her name right now, but it's a recipe book. And in there are many wonderful, nourishing, important recipes for postpartum and ways that you can prepare ahead of time. So you just have to advocate for yourself. You have to first know what you need to try to recover from birth the best you can. It includes food preparation. It includes calling on community and setting that up beforehand, thinking, do I go live with my mom? Does my mom come live with me? Does my sister, can someone come? Can I get my friends to commit to 1 day a week for 6 weeks to come over and spend time with me? And not being afraid to ask for help. And if you have the resources, hiring a postpartum doula, or even if you don't have a house cleaner, hiring a house cleaner now to help at least once a week, or, a few times a week, something. If you have other children, surrounding yourself with extra support for those children. There's so much that you need to think about, because when, as we know with our bodies, we even know with our cycles as women, our brain changes, the capacity of our brain and the energy changes. The same is true in pregnancy and birth. The capacity of our brain changes. We're not able to think and process logically and organize the way we used to. They call it mom brain for a reason, because the hormones are changing, the brain is changing. It's changing in a way so that you focus on raising your child and connecting with your child. So you can't think, oh, I'll figure it out. Oh, we'll be fine. Oh, it's me and my husband. We'll just figure it out together. Like, no, you're going to be sleep deprived. Everyone's going to be exhausted. And so you just have to set that structure up for yourself, and you have to be flexible, and I think the number one element is community, surrounding yourself with community, and people that can help you, like with the simplest things. Please come do my laundry. Please clean my dishes. Watch my baby while I go take a shower. Like we're talking about basic needs met, like the ultimate, just basic of needs being met.
Absolutely. And then I think another key, I mean, you said it, like not being afraid for asking for help.
Yes.
Which seems basic, but I feel, as you were saying before, we are raised as, I'm independent. I can do everything by myself. I don't need anyone. So that you are not even trained to ask for help when you really need that help, which is, the thing that you should probably learn at school, like the first thing, ask for help when you need it, because that's what makes a community, just asking for help and receiving help and helping someone else.
Yes. Yeah.
It's seen.
Go ahead, Arizu.
No, go on. No, I mean, it's seen as a weakness in our society. I mean, because I remember when I was in Cyprus, it was such a normal thing for people to help each other, like in supermarkets. If there was a older person, you would take, their groceries and you would put it, on the counter. You would help them. It was normal, Then they could maybe give you a ride because they had a car and you were a student. But the moment that I came to Milan, I remember the first time I went to a supermarket. So it, in my brain, it was like that's normal. You help elderly. So I try to put, a water bottle on the counter for the elderly. And he was angry to me. Like, what do you mean? Do you mean I cannot do this by myself? So like independency is at such a value, much more than connection or helping each other or support. So it's also the values that we have in our society. So it's
really sad. These are all great points. Absolutely. We're trained to be individualistic, independent, and like you said, all those other things are weaknesses. Interdependence, relying on each other, asking for help. I remember when I was early on with my infant and my husband would be at work, and I had this voice in my head, and it was aggressive and it was
Mm,
mean and it said,
Mm,
you have to figure out how to do this by yourself.
mm,
And it was like every day, all the time, like, do not ask for help. You have to figure out how to do this by
mm,
yourself.
mm,
And eventually I had to realize, like, oh, that's not my voice.
mm.
That's not helpful for anybody. It's not helpful for me. It's not helpful for my child to figure out how to do this by
Or
myself.
just
You know,
myself,
it's
yeah.
like we're not in doomsday. I'm not in like, it's not Armageddon. Like, I can go to my neighbor or call on my sister-in-law or call on my mom and
yeah.
say, can you come spend time with me today? Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
not
it's
helpful.
even dumb. Like we don't do anything in life alone. Like even our existence is of two person coming to each other, or the food that we eat. Like without cooperation, it wouldn't be possible that there is food on our table, the pencil, I don't know, having a computer.
Hmm.
So it's really, I don't know, it's weird that we think that
Hmm.
we have to do certain things alone when we don't do anything alone in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's strange. So,
Hmm.
and yeah, we talk a lot of times with Khadija also that when it comes to community, how much, how our cities are designed, like don't need, I mean, they make making community even harder, like, because with certain design features, you could, make the interaction between people to happen more naturally and more easier. But it's like our cities are creating any interaction like awkward. So if I want to get to know my neighbor, I actually should force myself and go knock on their door. While, if maybe my neighborhood was more walkable and it had a bench, if there was a bench under my building, maybe I could sit there, my neighbor could sit there, and we could, interact a couple of times, and we would build trust and we would build
Mhm.
community. But it feels like, our neighborhoods are a transition space or a consumption space. So either you go to a cafe, you eat something, you get out, or you go to work, come from work to home. So they're not really built for slowing down. And it goes again back to how our cities are built, and it's built only for efficiency of that productive
Yes.
part of the society. So move fast, go to work, come back, do this, do
Hmm.
that, sleep, and repeat. So
Yeah.
so city design could make this a little bit easier, to make it
Hmm.
more natural. But yeah, I think right now it's really hard to build also community because of this,
Mhm.
because everything is made for the highest amount of speed and not for slowing down and talking to
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a
that
great
makes it
point.
hard.
It does.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
when being a migrant, it makes it much harder also because you don't know anyone in the city, and get more and more
Mm-mm.
isolated.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I'm curious to know, like, talking about the physical space and, outside your house, if there were spaces you were going to maybe that were, I don't know, quiet, nice, or where you could have this connection in your
Hmm.
postpartum period.
Also during your
Yeah,
pregnancy.
during your pregnancy as well, that could also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I remember thinking, especially as a mom early on in infancy, I remember
Mm.
thinking, like, your baby wakes up usually by like 5 or 6 in the morning. Like, that's kind of
Mhm.
like, oh, we're all up. Here we are. It's time to get our day going. And I would like, want to go to a thing or sit, and nothing would open until 10.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I was like, I have nothing. What am I going to do? Like, I'd go for a walk early in the morning or I'd go to a park. There was like, especially if it was cold, there was like nowhere for me to like go with my baby. Like you said, to
Yeah.
sit, to interact, to get a coffee. I mean, sure, I could go to Starbucks, but it's like, I don't know,
Mm.
a little
What kind of
busy and high
connection can you?
strung and I
Yeah.
don't know. But yes, I wished that there was a more community oriented space where I could go at like 8 in the morning
Mhm.
and go
Yeah.
hang out with other mothers. Yes, definitely. And I think as I was reflecting on like what I would talk about in this space, not only would the space, right, like a neighborhood space, community open specifically to mothers and children, and somewhere where the children can crawl around safely and it's clean, and women can have a coffee, and not just that, not just the space, but you also need people that support that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just like the person selling the coffee, but maybe there's someone there helping with the children as well. Maybe there's someone there giving a workshop and talking with the mothers about parenting or breastfeeding, or like something to help these things that we're talking about and struggling with, right? So not just the space that's friendly for the mother and breastfeeding and crawling babies, but also that's supportive in nature, just community oriented, like people that come along with the space, that help run it along in a way that's helpful,
Mm-mm. I love those kind of spaces. Let's make them.
Yes.
I mean, there are some examples, but as always, there are just few and scattered just because someone has the sensitivity and sensibilities to do those spaces. There is one I love here. I mean, I don't have children yet, but I think if I'm still in Milan, I will definitely go there. So I think in the weekend, they have a space for children. And then, the parent can just go and have, a sip of wine and just chill because someone is taking care of the children. And I guess when I was in Northern Ireland, there were many spaces like in museum, in coffee shop like this, but it's like, how do we spread them?
Yeah.
How do we make them, the famous new normal we are always blabbing about after the COVID?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we talk about it more.
Yes, we
I
do.
mean, we started thinking about this because you talked about it. So
Yeah. I remember, and I share this, I feel like I share it every time. But I have a friend, her name is Akia, and she's a mother. And I remember we were talking about motherhood and life, and she said this thing, and it shook me. I felt my brain go like explode and like glitch. And she said, I can't wait until we get to a time when everything, and she emphasized, and I mean everything, is built with mothers and children in mind first. Every business building, every park, every parking lot, every cafe, every detail in our space, in our community, every building is first thinking about mothers and children. Where are they? How do they feel safe? How do they feel supported? Where is their space? Is there space for them? It's so important, because then you just don't want to go anywhere. You're like, what am I going to do with my kids? They're gonna it's not safe, or there's nowhere. They have energy, they need to. First of all, we need more nature, and also kids, they want to interact, they want to play and build and climb, and and instead of feeling like a nuisance when I'm somewhere with my kids, oh, I know that they have that corner over there, and someone's watching them. Someone trusted is watching them while I eat my sandwich and drink my coffee. That we're not alone. We're not alone, and we're not ignored, and we're not invisible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And isolated, because also like a mother that is isolated and a child that is isolated, it brings also stress to, I don't know, to the family, to children, and all this anxiety rate that we see increasing. So if there were spaces, I don't know, that were safe.
Yeah. And I feel we also always say this. You have those mantra that you're always saying to people, because they are kind of true, but you'll tell me. We're always saying that whenever you include someone in a design, is not to exclude other people, but you're actually make it more inclusive for everyone else. So it's just when you get mother and children in a space and you make that space feel in a place for them, it's when actually is going to work for elderly, for everyone,
Mhm.
because everyone will
Mhm.
be more mindful of that space, but also will be comfortable in that space, because it's it seems like a contradiction, because people will always say, but if you think just about women, just about elderly, or just about children, that space will work only for them, where it's just the opposite. Because when it's safe for, a huge group, then it's become safer for everyone else,
Mhm.
which is something we always have to battle to
Talk
to
about.
say and to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so much. And it's also being isolated, a mother and a child, or one parent and a child, even a household, if it's two parents and their children
Mm.
isolated, it's
Mm-hmm.
so unnatural.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm alone with my children for more than a couple hours, I start to feel how unnatural it is for me, for them. Like, this is not what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supposed to be with you all day by myself.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not it. Where's
Absolutely.
the village?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end, cities are like made by different small villages. And it's like, how do you make those, villages
Yeah.
work for
Work.
children and for mothers? Because at the end, cities are huge, but you can segment them in small villages.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. And we wanted to ask you, like, as it goes to, like, as we were talking about the more inclusive spaces, as I told you also before, and Khadija also mentioned in the beginning of the talk, fortunately, there's a start, like people are talking about more inclusive places for children, for women. Like, this is two topics that is really trending right now.
Yeah.
It's more trending.
Yeah.
And like still in the academic space, like in education wise, you don't see so many places that they talk about this, but there are some research projects here and there that they're trying to understand how would a city for children look like, how would the city for women look like.
Mm.
And when we talk about this kind of cities, the main focus is always on safety. So when we talk about cities for women, it's more from the gender perspective. So how to create more lighting, how to make the spaces that there's always visual surveillance. So when a woman is passing, she feels that she's seen from other people. So
Yes.
nothing bad can happen to her. And also from the children point of view, there's so much focus on creating safe spaces, especially from cars, so they can, play easily without.
Yes.
So it's more on the physical safety in that sense. So I wanted to ask you, in order to not reduce mothers only to women or caretaker, caregiver to children, what are some of the needs of women specifically that are not connected only to being a woman or only to be a caretaker, caregiver of a child?
You
So
mean just as a woman? Are you talking about gender?
in terms of, going through pregnancy, going through postpartum, what are the needs of a woman going through that process when it comes, to spaces that you need at home or outside, you as a woman becoming a mother, not specifically related to your child?
Okay, so as a woman being pregnant or recovering postpartum,
Yeah.
not connected to your child, but just as a woman going through this
Woman.
process, what do we need? That's a great question. I think the first things that come to mind are like comfort and ease, just because being pregnant and being postpartum is really, it's a lot on the body. And just for things to be as comfortable and easy, so things that are easily accessible when you're pregnant, and honestly, postpartum, the ideal is that the woman is resting and connecting with her child, immediately postpartum. So hopefully her home is nurturing and comfortable and accessible for community care. um Let me think about anything else. Yeah, those are kind of the only things that come to mind, is like comfort and ease.
Mm-mm. And
Hmm.
what about that we're talking about accessibility? And what about those times where you just want to be out there and not just be in your house? And maybe, I don't know, you want to go to the restaurant
Yeah.
or
Then your children,
yeah,
maybe they are more grown up or
yeah, but yeah, or you want, even when you are pregnant, you just want to pee somewhere. Sorry if I say pee, using the restroom.
Yes.
And it's an easy thing to do, but then, you don't have public toilet, or at least here, it's always hard to use a toilet that is from a bar or a place. It's,
Mhm.
they make sometimes hard things that should be, everybody needs a
rights. Yeah.
bathroom or everybody needs
Yes.
to eat. How do you do that when you are, your body is also going through all those changes, and, you're also adapting to a new being?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, hopefully there's just some we regain a reverence and respect for pregnant bodies and
Mm-hmm.
postpartum bodies, that I think mothers should be the most revered and respected and honored people in society. I think our societies would be better off being mother centered, so that as soon as a pregnant woman walks in, and of course, it's not about belittling or making them feel like, oh, you can't do anything on your own, but it's, we are here for you. How can we help you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think also pregnant bodies and postpartum bodies also need to come to a place of receiving that and not
Mm-hmm.
rejecting it, like you described with the elderly
Mm-hmm.
person that was offended that you were helping, so that we don't show up in spaces being like, I'm fine, I got it.
Yeah.
But 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 honoring, like, knowing that it's not about you and your capacity, it's about
Mm-hmm.
the period of time that you're in,
Yeah.
like, on really having reverence for this cycle of life,
Mm-hmm.
of 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 life being created, and what happens after that, there is a both an honoring and respect and care from the
Mm-hmm.
community side, and a receptivity from the pregnant body side, of like, I know this is what's up, I know that
Mm-hmm.
this is my time to receive,
Mm-hmm.
and to graciously accept that care. I think when those two things are in place, right, this
Mm-hmm.
reciprocal relationship, with community and mothers, then I think it'll be easier. That as soon as a pregnant walks into a bar and says, "Can I use your restroom?" There's like no question, like, of course,
Yeah,
let me
of
get you a
course.
water. Not,
Yeah.
you gotta buy something first, or
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah. And what's, at least in my small experience, what's annoying is that it's not because my belly is not showing. It's, I don't need the bathroom, or I don't need water, or I'm not freaking out, or I'm not tired. It's like you have this way of seeing just hearts, and everybody's excited about when you're pregnant, and you're like, yes, but I need things.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
please help me, even if you don't see my belly showing. It's
Hmm.
sometimes even like when you're, at least in my friends' experience, when their belly is showing, it's like, we got it now.
We
Like,
believe you.
yeah, now we know. We were tired before when you did not know I need help.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
again, is as you were saying, we need to ask for that help, because nobody else can ask for help if not ourselves.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah. Go ahead.
no, it's difficult to learn because we were talking about it, that we are trying to, a little bit respect our bodies also during our cycles
Mhm.
now, like to even understand, like till maybe 1 year ago, I didn't know that I have different seasons in a cycle. And I mean, you can see yourself that you're going through these different mood changes. But I think we don't know. We think that some things happen. Okay, we are so busy with our work that we even don't understand that, all these things are happening in our bodies. And I was talking also to my therapist about, how during, the week before my period, that I feel that I go inside this hole that I cannot connect with my surrounding space or people. It's like I'm just, stuck there. And she was telling me that, if before that time, if you actually give yourself a space, you won't become disassociated from your surrounding space. It's just because you didn't give yourself the support. And for us, PMS is such a normal thing. It's because we don't know how to support our body, and that happens. And I guess the postpartum happens also because we don't know how to ask for help. So
Yeah.
if the body is supported, you don't have to go through that. So
Exactly. And there's a term, I don't know if I'm still trying to find the origins, but it's either from Chinese tradition or Indian tradition, that it says 40 days for 40 years. And specifically talking about postpartum care, when you invest in those 40 days and really commit to giving that care to that mother, those 40 days become 40 years of optimal health. And the reverse is true. If you don't honor those 40 days, then you result in 40 years of health that's not the best. And I think the same with our cycles, just having the information and knowing like, oh, it's time for me to slow down. I know my brain is going to slow down. I know that I probably shouldn't go to all the social events that I've been invited to, like, let me drink more hot teas and let me sleep early and let me not try to create a new project right now. When we, honor those things, then our bodies and our emotions don't react, right? So like, I feel like those quote unquote PMS symptoms are our body being like, I can't
listen
handle
to
it.
me.
Yes, like listen, and I think the same postpartum. I had such a hard time as a mother to my children in the beginning, because it felt like a long PMS period where I was just agitated, annoyed. I had no patience. I was snappy, and they were so young. And I know it's because my body didn't heal. I didn't give I didn't have a proper recovery time, physically, emotionally, mentally, so that I could show up as a mother. I can now, and I see the difference because I've finally been able to take care of myself physically and all these things show up. I think it's so important. I don't know why we're not investing in each other, investing in our children, investing in our mothers.
We are not in our bodies. Most of the times we are just going through our days.
We don't think it's important to acknowledge our bodies and its responses. And I love also much of Gabor Mate. Have you guys heard of Gabor Mate and his work? He wrote a book called The Myth of the Normal, and he was a doctor for many years.
I heard the book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And his work is I love everything he talks about and what he stands for. It's all about, what our body needs, and taking care of those things so that our emotional well-being and mental well-being is there. And he talks a lot about the needs of children, the needs of infants, the needs of mothers, and vice versa, and how important that is when we become adults.
And to connect to that, how do we, as mothers or mothers to become, change the narrative in our own mind on understanding how important being a mother is, Because I feel like even though, you know, in my brain, I know that being a mother is very important, is one of the most important jobs in the world, but still I'm having a really hard time. I'm really scared of, you know, uh, becoming a mother, because I was talking about this also with my friends, that I feel like from the view of society after even marriage, I feel I went a little bit in the background. Whereas, you know, when we were, you know, a couple and we were just dating. So I feel like becoming a mother takes me a couple of levels even back
For
to,
sure.
you know, having importance in the society, or people even caring about what I
Yeah.
do or who I am. And so it's really scary. So how do we change that narrative as mothers
Yeah.
to to believe in our
I
value?
Yes, I hear that. I hear you. I felt all of that. I felt invisible. I felt unimportant. I felt like my work didn't matter, even though I knew it was the most important. But it's the most undervalued, underpaid, underappreciated. And you definitely feel that, unfortunately, in our society today. But I think we just have to know that when we're feeling those feelings, that it's not because we're not valuable, and it's not because it's not important. It's just because of the day we're living in. And I think what you can do, I think, I don't know if this has any merit, but I, I wish I would have known, right, about all the things I'm talking about when I was young and single and even married, but like childless, because I had no idea. I had a neighbor who had a newborn before I had children, and I was married, and I had no idea. I just went to visit one time, and I said, "Oh, how cute is your baby?" And then I left. Like, I didn't,
Yep.
she was my next door neighbor, and I didn't bring a meal. I didn't help her with laundry. I had no idea what she needed.
Yeah.
And I think likewise, we've talked about it recently. She's like, I didn't know either, like, to reach out for help. Um, I think what we can do is be aware and start thinking, how can I help a mom that I know today or this week? Let me go visit my mom that has my friend that has a 2-year-old, and let me just go play with her kid for 30 minutes. I can't tell you the amount of times that an adult puts attention, another adult puts attention on my children while I'm there. I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, I don't have to think about them. Someone else is watching them. I can breathe, I can drink, I can cook, I can wash a dish, like, to just show up, like, for you to start being the community you hope you have. If that makes sense. I think that's when it'll start to shift. When we start to think, how can I help a mother today or this week? My friend's pregnant. Let me learn what she needs. Let me go with her if her partner can't go with her to a doctor's visit. Let me massage her hands for 5 minutes. Like, these little simple things are they're so basic, but they're so important and helpful. These loving gestures of, like, service and being the community that you want. I think that's how we start to change it.
That's good.
Love it.
Let's see who will have children first, so that
Yeah.
we help each
Yeah.
other.
I mean, I have to say, I'm already saying to all my friends, be ready for it. Be ready, because you are going to babysitting.
Yes.
Yes, I am doing it since last year. So, and there is nothing yet but you.
You're making the community.
Yes.
That's good.
I'm threatening people.
I love that. And I'll add one more thing to that question, that to also know, we have to also just know that the way society's built and the things that we're doing, how we're spending our time, what we're focusing on, what we're talking about, is all a big distraction. It's like it's pulling us away from community life. As we know, we've gotten so far away from community that we're finding community on social media, which is so unnatural and bizarre, that we're, wasting our life away in bars and clubs and virtual dating, like we've gotten so far away from like what our design is, our human, physical, heart-centered, community-based human design is, to know that like, oh, I'm invisible now, because that's not true living anyway. We're just like really distracted.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're
No,
like,
it
we
does.
just get
Yep.
we just get kind of vortex into what life really is about when we have kids, and everyone else is doing something else. And we're like, oh, this is what life is all about, not all that distracting stuff out there.
Yeah. And I feel we are also doing a circle back, because whenever we talk about also, how physical space makes us also, being lonely, you start from your household. It's not like, I don't know how my parents were raised. You had like many sister and brother, but even the actual layout of the home, you had a courtyard and people was always visiting. It's like, whenever my parents says, why you need to ask to me to come to my house, just come visit. It's just one of these things that seems, like it seems that it's not normal just to pop chip in to your neighbor and say hello. While these are the small things that can build the relationship. And maybe
make us actually happy in comparison, to add something to your CV, It is,
Yes.
We'll come visit.
Yeah.
Would love that.
Do you have any other questions, or can I go to the last one?
You can go to the last one.
Okay.
I mean, I will stay here forever, but it's better not.
Yeah. Exactly. So the last thing we wanted to ask you was how to do, this whole work with love and kindness, because I feel, in our society right now, we are trying to go against so many things that are the status quo, which is amazing and it's good. But we are trying to go against it by still operating within the system that we were grown in. So we try to go against racial inequality by hating white people. We are trying to go against, gender inequality by hating men. So how can we, care for mothers without hating fathers, basically? And how can we do this work, going to the root of the problem and really solving it, instead of, just changing the group of people that we hate or we don't care about.
Right. Who's the villain, right? Changing the bad guy. Yeah. That is a beautiful question. I think it's also, the loving kindness also is in showing fathers their value, showing the value in fatherhood, how important their role is, praising them for being present and this and that. And I know sometimes there's frustration around people praising fathers for spending time with their children, like, oh, you're such a good father, look at you being with your children all alone, when women have been doing that forever and nobody cares. But I think they need encouragement, because it's been so gender specific for so long, that I think it's all right to show some encouragement around fathers that are present and showing up and playing their role a little differently, being more proactive in like child rearing. I think that's wonderful. That's a great question. I don't know. I think it's also a big part of it is, right, when is start implementing not just maternal leave, but paternal leave as well. Letting the family know, like, both of you matter in the raising of a child. You both need time off, not just the mother, but both of you is equally important. And maybe not making it voluntary, making it like, no, you have to take time off, and we will support you and you won't lose your position or your, like, how do we elevate the position of fatherhood just as much as we need to elevate and see the position of motherhood as well, right? That both are equally important. For me, the passion around motherhood is around specifically the simply because we physically carry the child, we physically birth the child, and then that whole transition afterwards, right? That's my attention and compassion is around the postpartum care there. But then there's parenthood, right? And hopefully, and I know not all families are heteronormative, like we know that there are very, very dynamic and diverse families out there, but just valuing the family unit, valuing the whole family.
Yeah, I love that you say matter and you didn't make it about responsibility, but about that child needs both the parents, not that parents are, I mean, they're also responsible, but it's about, that we need you as a father because you're important to growing the child as much as we need you as a mom, to take care of your child. So I think that's a really good reframing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natasha.
Thank you. This was lovely. I could talk about this stuff all day. Let's change it.
Same.
One conversation at a time.
We are gonna call you from now on. Whenever we have we are not okay.
Okay, we are not. Not every day, at least.
Once a month.
Once a month. I'll take it.
Thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to add? And also if you want to share, like whether people can see your work and follow you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just another big thank you. Thank you for having me. This was lovely. I had a great time. Wonderful conversation. Very fruitful. Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Mama Tasha Heath. I have a website called itstartswithmama.com if you're local and want some postpartum services. Also, if you want educational and planning services for postpartum care, that can be anywhere around the world. So look me up, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natasha. This was everything that I expected and more. Thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you.
I want to cry now, but I won't.
Thank you.
Thank you.